Before Elvis Presley or Chuck Berry ever picked up a guitar, Sister Rosetta Tharpe was electrifying audiences with her wild playing and gospel-infused vocals. Born in 1915, she was dubbed the godmother of rock and roll. Her blend of spiritual lyrics and rhythmic guitar licks inspired countless rock legends. In fact, Little Richard once called her his favorite singer. Rolling Stone recently highlighted how her 1940s recordings laid the groundwork for rock's signature sound. Despite this, she was largely forgotten for decades, but recent documentaries have reignited interest in her trailblazing career. Without Tharpe, rock and roll as we know it might never have existed. If That's All Right sounds familiar, it's because Elvis Presley's breakout hit was actually written and first recorded by Arthur "Big Boy" Crudup in the 1940s. Crudup's raw blues style and heartfelt lyrics made him a staple on the Southern blues circuit, but he never saw the fame or fortune his songs later generated for others. Recent research shows he struggled with poverty despite influencing rock and blues giants. Today, artists and historians credit Crudup's emotional delivery and songwriting as a key blueprint for the evolution of rock music. Synth music might conjure images of the 1980s, but its roots stretch back to the 1960s and Delia Derbyshire. Working at the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, Derbyshire was behind the iconic Doctor Who theme in 1963, a mind-bending composition created before modern synthesizers existed. Her pioneering tape techniques and electronic experiments inspired everyone from Aphex Twin to David Bowie. Only in recent years, with the discovery of her archives, has Derbyshire's genius been fully recognized by a new generation of musicians. Known for his explosive piano playing and outrageous stage presence, Escarita, born Askew Reeder Jr., was the wild heart of early rock and roll. He even taught Little Richard some of his signature tricks. Escarita's recordings from the late 1950s pushed the limits of rhythm, blues, and rock, with a flamboyance that presaged glam and punk. Modern artists like Janelle Monáe have cited his fearless self-expression as an inspiration. Despite his influence, Escarita's name is rarely mentioned outside deep music circles, though his fingerprint is everywhere. Reggae and dub wouldn't sound the same without Lee "Scratch" Perry. The late Jamaican producer and musician was a mad scientist in the studio, inventing new ways to use tape delay, reverb, and sampling. From Bob Marley to The Clash, countless artists borrowed from Perry's sonic toolkit. A 2021 study of modern production techniques found Perry's innovations echoed in genres like hip-hop and electronic dance music. Yet, his quirky personality and genre-defying work kept him on the fringe, even as his influence grew. Jackie Shane was a black transgender soul singer who lit up the Toronto music scene in the 1960s. Her powerful voice and electric performances drew huge crowds, but her career was cut short by prejudice and misunderstanding. Only in the last few years, after a Grammy-nominated reissue of her recordings, has Shane's story been widely told. Her unapologetic authenticity paved the way for today's LGBTQ+ artists, and her sound still feels fresh and revolutionary. Joe Meek was the eccentric British producer behind hits like Telstar by the Tornadoes. He was obsessed with outer space and futurism, often using homemade electronics to create otherworldly effects. Meek's work in the 1960s pioneered studio techniques like overdubbing, compression, and sampling, all of which are standard today. Music technology magazines have traced the roots of modern pop production directly to Meek's experimental methods. Despite his tragic end, his legacy lives on in every studio. The rumbling, distorted guitar of Link Wray's 1958 instrumental, Rumble, was considered so dangerous it was banned on some radio stations. Ray basically invented the power chord, a staple of hard rock and punk. Pete Townsend of The Who and Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin both called him an inspiration. Recent documentaries highlight how Ray's Native American heritage and rebellious sound helped shape the attitude of modern rock, even if mainstream fame eluded him. Moondog, born Louis Thomas Hardin, was a blind composer known as the Viking of 6th Avenue. Living on New York's streets in the 1950s and 60s, he created hypnotic, minimalist compositions with homemade instruments. His music influenced everyone from Philip Glass to Janis Joplin. Musicologists have pointed out that Moondog's rhythmic innovations anticipated both minimalism and modern experimental pop. While his look was eccentric, his influence on the texture of today's music is profound. Known as the voice of the civil rights movement, Odetta's deep, resonant singing influenced Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, and Janis Joplin. Her blend of folk, blues, and gospel became the soundtrack for social change in the 1960s. Interviews with Dylan and Baez often credit Odetta as a mentor and guide. Despite her pivotal role, her name is less familiar to younger generations, even as folk revivalists rediscover her catalog. Ritchie Valens is remembered for the timeless hit, La Bamba, but his influence runs much deeper. As one of the first Mexican-American rock stars, he broke racial barriers in the late 1950s. Valens' fusion of Latin rhythms with rock and roll laid the groundwork for later icons like Carlos Santana and Los Lobos. Recent academic studies have highlighted his role in creating the Chicano rock movement. His life was cut short at 17, but his impact endures. Jazz wouldn't sound the same without Mary Lou Williams. She was a composer, pianist, and arranger who worked with Duke Ellington and Benny Goodman. Williams's progressive harmonies and fearless improvisation helped shape bebop, swing, and even early R&B. Historians have noted that her compositions were often uncredited, yet her influence echoes in the work of Thelonious Monk and Miles Davis. Only lately has she been celebrated as a foundational figure in jazz. Donny Hathaway's soulful voice and lush arrangements defined the sound of 1970s R&B, yet his name is often overshadowed by more famous contemporaries. Songs like A Song for You and This Christmas remain staples, and his work with Roberta Flack is legendary. Recent research into sampling trends found Hathaway's music frequently sampled by hip-hop and neo-soul artists. His emotional vulnerability paved the way for modern soul singers like John Legend and Alicia Keys. When you hear Elvis Presley's Hound Dog, remember it was Big Mama Thornton who sang it first in 1952. Her powerful, growling vocals made her a fixture on the blues circuit, and she influenced Janis Joplin and Aretha Franklin. Thornton's recordings are a masterclass in raw emotion and energy, yet she never received the mainstream recognition she deserved. Blues historians continually point to her as an unsung architect of rock and roll's attitude. Bert Jansch, a Scottish folk guitarist, quietly revolutionized acoustic music in the 1960s and 70s. His intricate finger-picking and haunting melodies influenced Led Zeppelin, Neil Young, and Nick Drake. Music magazines have cited Jansch as the missing link between traditional folk and psychedelic rock. Though he never sought the limelight, his style is echoed by today's indie and folk revival acts. Billy Preston was known as the Fifth Beatle for his keyboard work on hits like Get Back and Something. He also played with the Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton, and Aretha Franklin. Preston's funky, gospel-infused playing helped bridge R&B and rock, introducing new textures to pop music. Biographers have documented how his innovative use of the organ and synthesizer shaped the sound of 1970s and 80s pop, yet his name is often left out of the conversation. Klaus Nomi was a German countertenor who blended opera, pop, and new wave in the late 1970s and early 80s. His otherworldly voice and futuristic costumes made him a cult figure in New York's underground scene. David Bowie, who invited Nomi to perform with him on Saturday Night Live, credited Nomi with expanding his artistic vision. Recent retrospectives recognize Nomi's role in shaping the theatrical side of modern pop and electronic music. Frederick Toots Hibbert, leader of Toots and the Maytals, is often credited with coining the term reggae in his 1968 song, Do the Reggae. His infectious energy and soul-infused voice helped reggae go global, influencing The Police, Amy Winehouse, and more. Recent Grammy tributes after his passing in 2020 highlighted how Hibbert's songwriting and stage presence helped define the genre's spirit. Despite this, his name is less famous than Bob Marley's, even as his sound lives on. Laura Nyro wrote songs recorded by The Fifth Dimension, Blood, Sweat and Tears, and Barbra Streisand, but her own albums were cult favorites. Nyro's unique chord changes and poetic lyrics influenced Joni Mitchell, Elton John, and Todd Rundgren. Modern songwriters often cite her as a model for blending pop, soul, and jazz. Her induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2012 brought new attention, but she remains overlooked by most casual fans. Fela Kuti, the Nigerian bandleader and political activist, invented Afrobeat, a genre that's now a global phenomenon. His blend of jazz, funk, and African rhythms inspired everyone from Paul McCartney to Beyoncé. Recent music industry reports credit Afrobeat's worldwide popularity to Kuti's relentless touring and bold activism. Despite facing government oppression, Kuti's revolutionary sound and message continue to inspire artists and protest movements worldwide.